Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Dragon Ball. Now today I have an awesome discussion on if Saiyans can breathe in space, and joining me is...
Hey guys, it's Mike here from Laughing Stock Media. How's it going?
Yeah, and we're going to be discussing, as I said, if Saiyans can breathe in space, because this is a very highly debated topic in the Dragon Ball series. You know, there's been many examples from both sides, saying they can't, or sort of contradicting if they can, and there's been examples supporting it. So Mike, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, I tend to feel that they definitely can, and I think that there's a lot of different evidences throughout the series that have supported this. For example, there's a lot of stuff in the manga. Now, a lot of people will be like, okay, let's disregard the anime, and we will. But there is a lot of stuff in the manga that's reflected in the anime that shows that Saiyan should, in all intents and purposes, be able to breathe there. And, for example, chronologically, the earliest example of this, and really, people say it's a joke thing, but in general, Goku went to the moon with Boss Rabbit and his gang, and he left them up there as a kind of punishment. Now, as we know, there is no oxygen on the moon, or in space in general, which obviously they were in, and he left them there, and yet they all seem to be able to stay there, and Goku didn't seem to have any issues whatsoever. And a lot of people want to disregard that as a joke. That's... If you want to say fair enough, I mean, I don't really know if I would say so, because Toriyama, he's talked about it. He's talked about how the Power Pole can go to the moon and stuff like that. So I feel like it's fair game, because, right. I mean, who's going to judge outliers,
Absolutely. Not to cut you off, just to mention, and I don't know if you were going to or not, but at this point in the series, which is a little interesting, is that Toriyama didn't even plan for Goku to be a Saiyan yet.
Yeah.
Which makes things a little interesting, but continue on.
There are little bits in Dragon Ball that kind of, in some ways, might hint at that, though. Right. Because, for example, when Major Metallotron looks at Goku, there's a little thing that pops up that says, hey, look, aliens. It's weird. So, I don't know, but the thing is, aside from that, there's another example, in the manga, for example. A lot of people don't realize that this is actually in the manga, but Goku's father, Bardock, is seen in space like he was in the movie, in the manga. When Frieza does a flashback to look at him, it shows, him flying in space with the other people behind him, trying to oppose Frieza, and then it shows in another panel Frieza killing him. So, if Bardock is in space, that means that other Saiyans can go into space, and there are seemingly other Saiyans behind him in that panel, and they all seem to be breathing, and they seem to be perfectly fine. So, it seems to me just extra stuff, even outside of the normal Dragon Ball Z range, it seems to say that yes, they can.
Yeah, it's all really weird, because we see in the series, like we just said, Goku was in space with Boss Rabbit, or Monster Carrot if you're a purist or whatever. But we see that they're in space, and you can't take that as a joke thing. Toriyama didn't know Goku was a Saiyan yet. He didn't think of that. And the thing with Bardock, which, I mean, I'm sure a lot of fans didn't even think that part was in the manga, you were mentioning. I actually had to double check myself before, because I couldn't remember if it was in the manga or not. And that messed up a lot of things. And then continuing on, where we see in the Frieza saga, when Frieza's talking to Goku, remind me exactly what his, because you have the more accurate depiction of what he said, because I get jumped up. What Frieza exactly said to Goku there? In relation to space?
He specifically says that, you cannot survive in the vacuum of space, and I can, so all that's waiting for you out there when this plan is done is your death. So, right before that, Goku says to Frieza, you can survive in the vacuum of space, right? So, again, these are two situations where they're not saying breathing, but rather they're saying survive in the vacuum of space.
So he can't, handle a temperature or the pressure or what, but,
I mean, there's a lot of stuff out in space that really, there, when you go out in space as an astronaut, you go through this pressurization chamber, because if you go out there just immediately, you can get your eyes blown out, all this stuff. There's a lot of stuff out there. It's immediately cold, so you could freeze to death out there in seconds. There's so much radiation that bombards you all the time, so, there's a lot of stuff that maybe their bodies just can't biologically handle that Frieza's can.
Right, and, we don't know the same biology through and through. Goku's been shown at least twice in the series, and this video is going to contain very minor spoilers. Well, actually, it's going to have spoilers for Resurrection F later on in the video. So if you haven't seen that, I wouldn't suggest going on any further. But one thing that's interesting is in the Frieza saga, obviously we see Goku is, drowning at a point in the fight, right?
Yes.
And is that necessarily mean he can't breathe in space, or?
I don't think. See, the thing is that when it comes to drowning and stuff like that, that seems a little bit inconsistent in the series, because it seems like there's some times where Goku can just stay underwater for a long period of time, and sometimes it seems like he's being drowned. So I feel like drowning and water is different than space, because, example, in space there's nothing really to breathe in, there's nothing that can get in your lungs, But underwater, there is. Like, water can fill your lungs up, and that can cause a lot of issues, with the water being in there. It can cause, this problem to happen, that problem to happen. So I feel like that's more of a problem than necessarily the lack of oxygen. It's just something completely different filling up your lungs and causing issues.
Right, and then the same thing happened in Resurrection F as well when Goku was Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan. And, Frieza has no problem underwater, but Frieza's a whole nother thing completely, obviously, from a Saiyan.
Yeah. It's just funny, too, because speaking of recent things, for example, in Super, it might just have been the particular translation, or it just might have been, something that we were misinterpreting, but after fighting all this period of time in Super between Goku and Beerus, which they definitely were in space, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. They were very high up in in space. Not just like in Battle of Gods when they're in, like, the atmosphere or whatever.
Yeah, they definitely seemed like they were absolutely in space, but in this example, it seemed like, Goku was almost drowning underwater during the, final closing moments of the fight between Goku and Beerus as well, so I don't know, it didn't seem, then again, like, when Goku was sinking to the bottom of the ocean...
You mean when he got, stabbed, right?
Yeah, that didn't seem like he was drowning there either.
Right, well, I don't really, it didn't really seem like he was drowning at all, and that could be something with the god power or whatever, we don't really know, and Super, right now we're up to episode 14 in Super for those of you who are watching this in the future, but from what we've seen, it seems like a lot of things with, regard to space and, breathing in general is almost disregard with the god's power. That's how I looked at it.
The thing, though, with Toriyama, going back to him, he's the guy who wrote the manga, he's the guy who came up with these characters, and obviously he did the original thing, Going to the Moon. When Battle of Gods came out, Toriyama was talking about how Goku and Beerus were going up into the stratosphere, or like the highest levels of, where you just can't breathe anymore, like pretty much in space when they were fighting. And he was like, I think that they can just breathe, they could barely breathe a little bit, which to me makes it seem like they can kind of breathe in space or environments that don't really have any oxygen, you know what I mean? Yeah, of course, you have to wonder, how the hell can someone breathe where there's no oxygen? But
right.
they do this in other comics and stuff too. Like, for example, in Superman comics, he learned how to breathe in space. So there must be some sort of mechanism or something like that which allows them to breathe in something out there, or just allows them to replace the need for breathing with some other kind of thing that they take in energy for. So I think that it seems like they can. I think that there's just a lot of evidence that supports that.
And this is going to come to I guess the major Resurrection F spoilers coming up here. But what I wanted to say was that I was thinking maybe Goku, obviously he's been raised on Earth his whole life. He's not used to like the vacuum of space, but then Frieza saying like, oh, your people can't survive in a vacuum. But we're seeing Bardock and other Saiyans be out there, and I'm like, maybe the fuller, I don't want to say pure Saiyans, but the more the regular Saiyans that were back when Planet Vegeta was still around, they have a better handle on the atmosphere and stuff like that out in the vacuum. But then I look at Vegeta in Resurrection F. And what was said in that film after Frieza blew up Earth is, I believe, what was it Whis or Beerus that said this?
I think it was Whis.
I believe so. They both made comments at it, and I'll have a picture up here, hopefully with some subtitles on there to show you guys. But what was said was Frieza is most likely still alive. He can survive in a vacuum. But now, again, nothing about breathing. But this shows that even Vegeta, to me, that's the thing that they're saying, like, oh, Vegeta can't survive in a vacuum, but Frieza can. That's what it's saying to me.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's just something that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't understand why they... Because the thing is, if it's not breathing, like if it was breathing, Vegeta could have just held his breath and flown immediately to where the bubble was. Like, no problem. But then again, like, why does Vegeta die immediately the second he hits space? You know what I mean?
Well, he turned into Arnold Schwarzenegger from Total Recall.
Yeah, I guess so. You know, there's freaking eyes flying out of his head, but it's just like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. It's possible, and this is another theory, it is potentially possible that the reason why Bardock and those other ones were outside, you know, the atmosphere and in space is because, like, they somehow learned, you know, when they're off on other worlds, like, fighting, how to do that. But then again, Vegeta used to do the exact same thing where he'd go off to other planets and fight. So I don't know how you can reconcile these inconsistencies, and there are a lot of inconsistencies in Dragon Ball Z.
Absolutely. The thing is, that whole Bardock thing is really what makes this really confusing for me personally, because that is clear evidence that they are in space, but we're seeing, you know, I think that even though, like, you know, like you said, it causes complications to the lungs with them drowning, the drowning thing is still a big deal. It shows they can't breathe under a lot, you know, all circumstances or anything like that, and
yeah,
you know, maybe it's all messed up. And I honestly, for both of us, I'm sure we can both say is that the real answer is that we don't know. We don't have a definitive answer because there really isn't one, because it just flip-flops all around.
And Toriyama won't give one, and when he does, he'll probably forget it in a month.
Absolutely. There's not actually like dozens of examples of this in the series either. We had to really, you know, pick and choose. Mike, do you have anything else to add?
I was just going to say, it just seemed like at the moment when this was brought up in the first place in the Frieza saga, because this is only, except for in the most recent movie, this is only ever brought up as a plot element in the Frieza saga. So it seems like it might have just been a sort of narrative decision by Akira Toriyama in order to add more stakes to it, because if Goku can just survive a planet exploding and fly back to Earth, then there's not a lot of tension right there, you know what I mean? Like, he's Goku at that point, like, he should be able to take that shit. So if he can't breathe or he can't survive in space, oh my god, there's the stakes, there's the tension, you know what I mean? So it's highly possible that that is what Toriyama was trying to go for, and they never bring it up again after that point. So it's entirely possible that that's just what they're trying to do. I mean, the thing is, at the end of the day, they're on all these different planets, and all these different planets shouldn't have the exact same oxygen levels and the exact same, you know, environments and you know, just atmospheres as Earth does. Like, you would think that Yardrat doesn't have the same atmosphere as Earth, or Namek doesn't, or Planet Vegeta. So you wouldn't think that any human or someone who can survive on Earth and their oxygen levels would survive there either. So I just think it was a narrative decision at the time by Akira Toriyama that he just came up with on the spot. He's like, oh, people can't survive in space, so Goku can't either. But, I mean, there's just a lot of things that contradict it, and, I mean, that just seems to be how he writes, though.
Yeah, like we talked about, there's so many things that contradict each other in the series entirely, not just with this subject. Obviously, you know, when there's a lot of filler scenes where we see, you know, other Saiyans in space and stuff. What was Vegeta was training with in asteroids or whatever. Yeah. Which is fillers. A lot of filler scenes.
Like when Vegeta goes outside of his ship and blows up the planet with
when it was with Nappa, right?
He's outside his ship and he's completely fine.
I mean, I think we covered all the canon evidence of this, really, didn't we? And anything else is kind of like filler.
The thing is, too, though, like that, all these different, like, is there oxygen in the afterlife? Because, like, Goku and...
Ooh, now you're asking a whole lot of other questions.
Yeah, like, Goku and the others go to the afterlife, like, when they're alive and they're breathing perfectly fine. So, like, is there oxygen in heaven, or is there oxygen on the Kai's planet? Like, I know there's plants, but, like, it's a completely different dimension. Like, there's oxygen on King Kai's planet. Do they need to breathe? You know what I mean? It's just, there's so many things that, like, it just doesn't seem like Toriyama cared or thought of it at the time, and then it just becomes, like, this big booming thing. You know what I mean? It's crazy.
Absolutely. Well, I think this video has gone on for long enough. We definitely said a lot of things, and like I said, we really don't know. And no one, except for Toriyama, if he even cares to discuss this, knows the answer. But I really want to hear what you guys think about this, because I think this is a very good group discussion, and you guys in the comment sections can really add into with your thoughts and theories on this, because it can go so many different ways. But for us, we really don't know. I would just like to say that I do believe that there is more evidence supporting the fact that they cannot breathe in space. That's the side that I would more towards lean against, I suppose. But it is very inconclusive in terms of evidence. There's a lot of things contradicting, so we really do not know about this. Mike, you have anything else to add to this?
No, I feel like we covered all the bases. It's just, it's going to be up to you guys down below what you think. Because at the end of the day, unless Toriyama tells us and then, keeps it consistent and adds it to the manga, or the anime, we're really not going to know.
Absolutely. Well, I'd like to thank you guys all for watching this video, and do not forget to check out Mike from Laughingstock Media's channel, annotated on the screen and in the link down below. Mike, why don't you take us out of this video?
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And as I always say, stick around, because there's a lot more to come in the future.
I'll catch you later.